And now, breaking news.
So I'm recording this a week and a half ago, and I know I'm a time traveler, that's not the point. I hope Ben Carson is still in the race. He's surging in the polls, at least in, I think, Iowa, but that's not important. What's important is that Ben Carson is a crazy person. So I've put together 14 insane things Carson has said. Now this might run a little long, folks, but this has just gots to get out there. Number 1, Obamacare is the worst thing since slavery. Yes, in 2013 he said Obamacare is really, I think, the worst thing that has happened in this nation since slavery. Yeah, so, I mean, it's no white bread, but it's also, you know, Obamacare is worse than JFK's assassination. It's worse than 9/11, that's for sure. Quote, and it is, in a way, it is slavery in a way, because it is making all of us subservient to the government, and it was never about healthcare, it was about control. Wow, Ben. Number 2, women who get abortions are like slaveholders. On Meet the Press, he said that these women, they're like slaveholders who thought they had the right to do whatever they wanted to that slave. And he went on to call for an outlaw of abortion, even in cases of rape and incest. Now, I get it. You, as a minority, can talk about things like slavery, but for the love of God, it is in no way similar. Number 3, Hitler could happen in the U.S. today. He likes to invoke Nazis. If you go back and look at the history of the world, tyranny and despotism is how it starts. It has a lot to do with control of thought and control of speech. I don't think Ben Carson has the ability to control his own speech. Number 4, Jews could have prevented the Holocaust if they had guns. Okay, well, first of all, some Jews did have guns, especially in Poland, and turns out a civil armed insurrection is not terribly effective against a well-organized, well-trained, well-armed military. I think the likelihood of Hitler being able to accomplish his goals would have been greatly diminished if the people had been armed. There's a reason these dictatorial people take the guns first. From many people in the Jewish community, including rabbis, who have told me, you're spot on. You are exactly right. Okay, so now you're playing the I have a Jewish friend angle. That's weak tea, man. That is... If they were armed to the teeth, perhaps. But come on, get real. Number 5. Ben Carson has invoked Hitler and Nazis no fewer than 13 times. And that's as of this recording. With another week and a half to go, my God, he could invoke them 2 more times? 3? He's a brain surgeon, so I assume he can get these things done. But man, he's so dumb, it's safe to say he ain't a rocket scientist. Number 6. College campuses should be monitored for liberal political speech. So he was on Glenn Beck, and he called for the censorship of extreme political bias on campuses, saying the Department of Education should, quote, monitor our institutions of higher education for extreme political bias and deny federal funding if it exists. So later, he was pressed on it because it's just a terrible idea. And he said, no, this won't hurt conservatives. Host Dana Loesch asked if the pendulum would swing the other way and we would see sort of like monitoring of political speech for conservatives. Carson assured her that it would not. Carson said, I think we would have to put it in very strict guidelines for the way that was done. So yeah, we have to clamp down on liberal ideas, but not conservative ideas. No, No, again, it's us versus them. We're the good guys. We're the good guys. You know, by very few metrics. Number 7, Muslims should be disqualified from the presidency. So in September, he was on Meet the Press, and he said, I would not advocate that we put a Muslim in charge of this nation. I would not agree with that. In order for a Muslim to become president, you have to reject the tenets of Islam. Oh, this from a Seventh-day Adventist. Oh my gosh. Personally, my litmus test would be reason above all. Reason before faith. Faith says you can tackle that big guy at the bar, but you can't. He's a big dude. Number 8. There's a war on what's inside women. During a campaign stop this summer, Carson denied the argument used to describe the Republican Party's policies that restrict women's rights. Quote, there is no war on women, he said. There may be a war on what's inside of women, but there is no war on women in this country. Okay. He's able to disconnect women from their bodies. Maybe it's their soul that he cares about. Should women be allowed to remove moles without an ultrasound? I mean, again, this guy is so smart. But again, just like him in Congress, there are so many people who you would think would know better than to say stupid stuff. But Ben Carson, man, he just proves to me that no matter how smart you are in one category, I don't want you helping me out in others. Einstein, some would say he's a fairly smart guy. I would not like him to pick out my clothing for tomorrow. No, he was terrible at it. And I don't think it's fair to say Ben Carson's an idiot, but I would give him a free upgrade to Savant. Number 9, being gay is a choice because prison turns people gay. On CNN, Carson said that homosexuality is a choice. You see, it totally makes sense by his reasoning. People go into prison straight, and when they come out, they're gay. He also called marriage equality a Marxist plot, described marriage equality supporters as enemies of America, and compared homosexuality to pedophilia and bestiality. See, if you want to be true to your ideals, if you really believe prison makes people gay, why do you send so many? Why do you do the tough on crime thing? Are you trying to print gay people? Are you trying to create an endless supply for Washington, D.C. men's rooms to have wide stances? I don't understand. It's like how they hate abortion, but they also hate birth control, which is the leading contributor to the decline in abortions. They hate sex ed, which reduces abortions. And once they can't get an abortion, they have a child, they sure as hell hate social programs to make the mother and child healthy and successful. It's ridiculous. Not as ridiculous as number 10. Number 10, there's no such thing as a war crime. He said on Fox News that the U.S. should not hesitate to send troops to defeat ISIS. And by the way, if there's one thing we've learned about wars in the Middle East, and believe me, there isn't, it's that sending troops doesn't work. It just makes things worse. But we should do that without fear of being prosecuted for war crimes. He said, quote, if you're going to have rules for war, you should just have a rule that says no war. And by the way, Dr. Ben, that is the rule we have. There is an international no fucking war rule. He said, other than that, if we can't have a no war rule, other than that, we have to win. There's the Geneva Convention and many, many other international treaties and laws clearly lay out the rules. So no rules. Mow down civilians, which is kind of what we do. Number 11, Obama is depressing the economy to keep people on welfare. After appearing on The View last year and saying that Americans have become dependent on welfare, Carson elaborated on Fox News. Do you think that American people who are on welfare want to be on welfare? Megyn Kelly asked him that. He said, I think some people have that as a way of life. Perhaps some of the things that are going on right now, which could be easily remedied, are not being remedied in order to keep the economy depressed because there would be no appetite for many of the social programs if people were doing well. Oh, Ben Carson, when will you ever stop being wrong? Number 12. Obama signed immigration reform to bring in government-dependent voters. Obama's executive action on immigration was part of a nefarious agenda, his words, to bring new voters into the United States who would be dependent on government. So former Republican Representative J.D. Hayworth asked, is he just trying to instead of get out of the vote, bring in the vote? Is all this designed to have new voters, despite the fact he claims they're not going to be citizens? And by the way, they're not going to be citizens. That's not part of the program, but fine. In the long term, is the goal to bring in a new class of voters dependent on government? Carson's response? Of course it is. Yes, that's why we should treat immigrants who are here doing jobs that we don't want to do, working for companies who don't get in trouble for hiring them and paying them slave, if any, wages. No. The reason we should treat them like human beings is because in 20 years, their children will vote for Sasha or Malia. Come on, Ben Carson. Number 13, Congress should be able to remove judges for voting for marriage equality. In a radio interview, Carson said it was unconstitutional that judges have ruled in favor of equality. Never mind that the Supreme Court has actually validated it. That's not the point. The point is, Ben Carson hates gays. That's the point. And Carson said that when federal judges make rulings like this, our Congress actually has the right to reprimand or remove them. Man, I know that there's a hankering for someone from outside the Beltway to take the reins, but someone should at least have a cursory grasp of how the entire process works. Just maybe even read the Wikipedia page on what politics is. Number 14, my final one, and boy am I getting long-winded. Anarchy could cancel the 2016 election. Man, I've heard this before. People claimed Clinton was going to do a third term. People claimed Bush was going to do a third term. And now they're claiming Obama's going to do a third term. Come on, people. Then again, there were people who claimed Bush Sr. would do a second term, but that didn't work out either. If we continue down this path that we are going down, this pathway where everything is framed in a political sense and our representatives are not working for the people, they're working for their party, then the anarchy could lead to the 2016 election being called off. Well, I gotta tell you, yeah, Congress is gridlocked, but I don't believe that's for the reasons Ben Carson believes. See, Republicans are largely responsible for the intransigence. It's not my opinion. It's fairly well documented. The first call to action when Obama was elected was, we are going to oppose anything this president tries to do. So the first bill Congress passed in 2008 was an extension of the digital television mandate for the FCC. They had to extend it. There weren't enough contractors in the country to build and or retrofit towers, and they opposed it. They voted it down. It was stupid. It was symbolic. It messed with a lot of people's lives. It was eventually brought back up and passed, but they just had to stand up to the man. And by the man, I mean the anti-man. Because Christ, they think he's the Antichrist. So that's that's just 14 reasons why you should never trust, believe in, and certainly not vote for crazy man Ben Carson.